Alright, welcome back. We've made it. It's the end of Power Rangers January, the final video of the month. I promised in the last video that we would do something special for this one, and I do aim to keep that promise. Before us here, you'll see something that probably looks a little unique to most of you, at least. This is a team card, and it was from the final set of the game, the unreleased Set 5, Keepers of Peace. This set had a lot of things that it was going to do differently to the game, and unfortunately got canceled before it could be released. However, we were able to find, through scouring the internet, Wayback Machine, bless it, we were able to find 80 of the 90 card images within this set. Still working on finding the rest, but for now, we've at least seen 80 of them, which means we can do something with them. You'll find in the description of this video a link to a Google Drive where you can download a printable PDF of the set if you wanted to print it out, put it in a binder for collection's sake, or, even better, try playing with it yourself. That would be awesome. For now, I want to show you the first thing that came to my mind when I looked over these cards. I'll start with getting into what this team card is and what it does. So these team cards, there were, 10 of them or so within the set. They have a requirement on them. I apologize, this is a little tough to see on the camera itself. In person, these are a little easier to read. It's just because it's printed, it's a little bit tough to see. But they have a requirement of some series. Your deck was required to have only cards that meet that requirement. In this case, Super Mega Force and any other TV series. So that's fine. Most teams, Power Rangers, RPM, stuff like that, they all kind of had their own card, and their requirement was that you had to have a deck with only cards from that series. However, Super Mega Force, for anyone that's seen this particular series, knows that their whole thing is that they had Ranger keys that gave them access to the powers of Rangers from previous seasons, and they could kind of expand their arsenal by using those keys. Therefore, this team card allows you to run Super Mega Force cards, but also any other series you want as well, because Super Mega Force could use them all. But in addition to those requirements, you're given some kind of bonus. In this one, it says when you win a battle, you may gain 1 Ranger key. Now, Ranger keys is another thing that is not something that you probably will have ever heard of before, at least within the confines of this game. You'll notice here there's a little Ranger key and a +X. One of the rules that Set 5 is going to introduce is that at the start of the game you would roll a d6, okay, I got a 3. That's the number of Ranger keys I had to spend over the course of the game. Certain card effects were going to require you pay a key to do something cool. There are a couple of cards within Set 5 that say your opponent may only pay cost with cards in the training area or with their Ranger keys. We don't know. The rules for Set 5 were never completely released, so we don't know if you would have been allowed to spend training area keys as though they were in your training area or hand for paying costs. But we at least know this portion of things. So I would say if you're casually kitchen tabling Set 5, use it this way, where you roll and this is the number of keys you get. They're used specifically for paying the cost of key-related effects. If you want to try it where you can pay card costs and stuff with it too, that's fine, but we never heard about that aspect of things. It might just be those effects specifically that let them do it. However, as we said, this one says anytime you win a fight, you get an additional key, which means we're probably going to want to use those keys. If we're going to have a deck that tries to see them or give us more of them, why we'd pick this one, we'd probably want to use them. So let's see why we did that. To do so, I'll start with kind of the combo goal of this deck. First things first, we have to look at a couple of cards from Set 5. We've got 3 copies of the green Super Mega Force Ranger 1-drop and 3 copies of the green Super Mega Force Ranger 2-drop. The 1-drop we'll look at first here. He's got decent stats, 140, 170, goes up into 2s and 3s. He's not actually that bad. Set 5 would have been the last set, so, kind of power crept anyway. Not ridiculously, but, Set 5 is always going to be stronger, just period, than Set 1 cards would be. But he's 1 cost, 2 damage. That's pretty good. Win or lose, you may move a green or black ranger card from your discard pile to your hand. As you can tell from the title of this video and the thumbnail, we are playing a forever green deck, where everything in this deck is going to be a green ranger, or at least for the most part. So anytime you win or lose, you're going to be able to grab basically anything you want from your discard pile and put it back in your hand. That's good. That's going to keep cool replayability going on with some of your card effects that are good, which we'll get into later. But what we want to see right now is this guy. This is the star of the show, the reason we built this deck. When I read this card, I immediately thought, this is what I want to build, and we'll see why. He has 2 cost, 2 damage, green Super Mega Force Ranger. While he's battling, green cards on top of this card get +1 damage. So if you play a card above him that's green, does 1 additional damage. That is good. We'll see why that's good in just a sec. Pay a key. Green Ranger cards in your hand gain enhanced symbol green Super Mega Force. So you can pay a key to give any Green Ranger card enhanced green Super Mega Force. So you can play any Green Ranger card in your deck on top of this guy for free during the assist step. When you play them, you'll get their play effects, you'll get their power, things like that. He also has enhance as well on top of a green Mega Force, so you can play him for free on top of this guy, which means you get to pay 1 to have this kind of combo go off. So we do the 1-drop, whatever. We do this guy, get him out for free. He then gives all of our guys in our hand enhance for free on top of him. So why do we want to do that? What are we going to do with that effect? Well, the Green Ranger that we're really going to want to use is the Green Mighty Morphin Ranger, the ultra rare from set 4. Everyone knows this is sort of the chase ultra rares within the game. It's beautiful, it's Tommy, it's a perfect storm of collectability, awesome pose, lasts real set, and an incredible effect. 2 cost, 2 damage. During the assist step, which is the same step you would put this guy on top, so you'd still get this effect, you may play any Mighty Morphin card from your hand or training area onto this card for 0 cost. So, what are we going to do with that? What Mighty Morphin card are we going to use on top of him? We're going to use one of the 3 copies that we run of Battle Mode Dragon Megazord. 6 cost, 4 damage. When played, discard a card below this to change each max power of this card, or each power of this card to max. What explanation is needed? We're gonna probably win with this card. Now that whole combo is expensive if you're paying this outright, but if you remember, this guy we paid for 1, we played this guy on top of him for free, we played this guy on top of him for free, they played this on top of this for free. We have paid 1 to pull off this Megazord. We also have 4 cards underneath this that we can use to discard to increase him to max. Nice thing about doing so is that we can discard one of our important Green Rangers for starting our combo, this one specifically, to our discard pile. And in doing so, means that we will have him later if we want to pull things back out of the discard to use again later. Also, we can throw more copies of this guy in the discard, pull him back with other effects. In theory, all of this is going to go to the discard pile anyway, because we're hopefully going to win off of this little chain of cards. But if it somehow doesn't end up in your training area, you'll at least know that the important piece you got to shove to the discard, and we'll find a way to get that back. So that's sort of the gist of the main idea of the deck. We want to use this Green Mega Force Ranger, the 2 cost specifically. We want to use him to play our free Green Rangers on top of him and find interesting things to do with that. Now, this isn't the only thing we can do. It is the big sort of end goal of the deck, but it's not our only option. So let's get into what that looks like for other things within the deck. We'll start small. We'll go with our 0 costs. We are going to run a few of these. We can't, of course, just run a big, cool kind of victory package. We have to do something in the meantime. First thing, we'll have the green RPM Ranger, 0 cost, 1 damage. This is a set 5 card as well. Good stats because of it. When he's played, the cost of your opponent's cards cannot be reduced and may only be paid for from their training area or from their Ranger keys. This has potential to be incredibly impactful. Why? Well, say we get this guy out as our first turn, we're going first, we are the sort of active player, we set this card down, reveal it, we play our win play to effect first. Our opponent now cannot pay the cost of their card from their hand, they have to use their training area or their Ranger keys. If they don't have enough Ranger keys, say their Ranger key roll was bad or they didn't run a team card, they're not going to be able to play a card, which means you're going to get a free 2 damage off of it. That's a good start to the game for especially something that's literally free. We've got 3 copies of the green Galaxy Ranger. 0 cost, 1 damage. During the judgment step, I can redo his judgment. Basically, he gives me a free reroll on my dice. He's got fantastic stats, huge numbers for a 0 cost. No max is kind of his payoff. He never has a max number, but his other stats are just massive otherwise. But you get to redo that dice roll. If you just need to try to squeeze a slightly better roll out of him, you do, and it's free. That's really good. This guy, you'll recognize. We've talked about him a lot. The Lightspeed Rescue Rangers, their effect is so versatile. It's hard to run a deck without using one set of these guys somewhere. This one, he's green, so we can free play him if we need to. During the assist step, you can exchange this card with another card from your training area. Now, there's a lot to talk about with this guy. You play him main phase, that's fine. Whatever, you can play him as your 0 cost guy. That's okay. Or, if you need to, you can play him on top of this guy because he now gets enhanced green Super Mega Force. So we can play him on top of him. Then we can exchange him with something in our training area. When you do, you get to play whatever that is, pull it out. Maybe it's a Dragon Zord. Maybe it's a Green Ranger from here. Maybe it's another piece of the combo. Who knows? There's just so many options for when that can be used. The fact, too, that this all takes place in the assist step means that it's past when you've done your die roll. You've played your card, your opponent has had their opportunity to play any Megazords that they want. You both do your die roll, then you go to assist, you then switch into this guy, switch into something else, and you can throw off all kinds of combat math with that. You can change the rock, paper, scissors orientation of your board state, you can change your weaknesses, you can have better numeric values, better play effects. Just a very, very important card to the deck. The Lightspeed Rangers are all staple. Any one of them that you put in a deck is going to be an important part of it. That's the end of our 0 cost. We just run 9. Then we've got 2 more set 5 cards here. The green Mystic Force Ranger. He's a 1 cost, 2 damage. Pretty decent stats. He does have a max at least. But when he's played, you may move 1 card in a player's training area to their hand. Now, for the same reason that this guy was good, this guy is as well. We can put a card back in our hand that's in our training area that we want to be able to reuse. We know that this green Ranger here wants to play it from our training area or from our hand. We know that just having this in our hand is good for just paying the cost if we want to. We can also use it to put a Mega Force 2 back in our hand to keep that chain going. There's so many options that you have with that. Also, though, on the flip side of it, your opponent, you could choose one of their cards in their training area, put it back in their hand. This guy is played, if you play him on top of him, it's played after they've already done their dice roll, but before they've gotten to increase it. You can play this guy, pull a training card back into their hand so they can't increase their die roll with it. He has scroll, which means at the end of the battle you can roll a dice. If it's a 1 or 2, it changes its power to rock. 3 or 4 changes it to paper, and 5 or 6 changes it to scissors. So you also have potential to alter his bonus damage condition, which means he's likely going to be doing 4 damage. Plus, this card says that any Green Ranger on top of him does an extra 1 damage. So that makes him do 3, which means he does 6 on a double. He has scroll, which means it's more likely that he'll get to do that. This guy's great. 3 copies in this deck of the Green Mighty Morphin Ranger. Now, when this card is played, you look at the top card of your opponent's deck, and you may exchange it with the card in the battle area. You can imagine why that is a good effect. He's got decent stats, which is fine, but being able to play this guy, switch whatever their good card is in play out with maybe a bad card off the top. Say they've got like their something big, they've got a Megazord on the table, and you swap it out with a 0 cost from the top of the deck. All of a sudden you've got a lot better chance of beating it. This guy gets you out of some pickles that you normally would have no business being able to get out of. This played effect is fine if you play him on play. That's okay. But if you play him on top of him, it's also done again after your opponent has gotten to Megazord, after your opponent has gotten to roll a dice. You know exactly what the kind of outcome of this turn is going to be, and if you know you can't get past it, this card's going to at least give you a chance to do something about that. We've got a 2-cost, a singular 2-cost Green Ranger in this deck other than this one, and this guy is a beast. The Green SPD Ranger SWAT mode. Huge stats. 3 of them are low, but 3 of them are massive stats. If he wins and he's on 2, 4, or 6, he gets +1 damage. That makes him a 3. If you play him on top of him, that makes him a 4. That makes him an 8 damage if he hits a double. 8 damage on a 2-cost guy? Awesome. But even better, if you've played him on top of the Green Super Mega Force Ranger 2-cost, he was free. So instead of a 2-cost, you now have a 0-cost card doing 8 damage, potentially. We'll say 4 just for to be conservative. That damage output is huge. You get to do this again in the enhanced step, which is after you've rolled your dice. You know what your dice roll is going to be. You know if you're already on a 2, 4, or 6. You also know if your opponent is a rock, paper, or scissors. So you know when to play this guy, the absolute best time to set this guy down. You know what your dice roll is, you know what their result is. You have so much control over when this guy is going to deal double damage. If you hold this and wait for the opportune time, you can really set this card down at a time that will just decimate your opponent's deck. Now, that brings us down to the final 3 cards of the deck. There are 3 in this deck that are not Green Rangers, or at least the Green Ranger adjacent Megazord. We have 2 copies of the Elephant Spirit Ranger. He is at least green colored, but he is not a named Green Ranger. But 1 cost, 2 damage. So what do we get for 1? We get great stats. If he's battling a played card, which is admittedly most of the good effects in the game, you may move a card from your discard area to your hand. Pay 1, buy back this guy. 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 Even better, you can pay 1, you can discard a card and fetch the same card back. So essentially his cost is 0. He's, granted it's a little bit of a gamble if maybe they won't play a played card, but you can get away with a 0 cost guy here too, which decent stats for really good stats for a 0. Decent overall. He just gives you a lot of versatility in picking a card that you need for the right time later. Setting up a future copy of the SPD SWAT mode is great. There's just so many things you can do with that. This takes us to our final card in the deck. We have seen Jungle Fury cards in this deck. We have seen SPD. We have seen Mighty Morphin. We have seen Mystic Force. We've seen Lightspeed Rescue. We've seen Lost Galaxy. We've seen RPM. We've seen Super Mega Force. What What does that mini-series mean? Why would that be a good thing? It means we get to run Retro Rangers. Anyone that knows anything about the game knows that this card's kind of controversial. They know that this was really good back in the day when the game was actually played, and remains that way still. It has 5 cost, 5 damage, but in your hand, this card's cost is -1 for every TV series on the cards in your discard pile. Cost can just be 0 on this guy. This card can just be a free 5 damage, maybe even 8, maybe even 10 damage, massive stats. He has Ally and he has Scroll, so his Scroll's going to let him roll into his Rock, Paper, Scissors again, even more likely prompting a double damage win. A free 5 or 10 damage card is insane, and this deck facilitates it so well. A lot of people kind of wanted this to get banned back in the day. People wanted it to get limited to 1. Whatever, for now, it's still here. I'd run 2 of it if I had more. I only own 1 of it. Just like the Green Ranger, these are kind of the 2 real hunt cards in the game. Both of these are very uncommon. This guy is massive. Being able to play him to seal a game out is so huge. And even better, if you get to play him for 0, you still have an entire hand worth of cards to be able to play this guy out, sack that, give every level max. He's going to do a guaranteed 4, maybe an 8, but a guaranteed 4 because he's max on every level. And this card was free. There's so many opportunities for damage output in this deck. You can get these cool Megazord chains to go off. Another fun thing is you get to use 6 of the more sought after ultra rares within the game in this deck. It's a beautiful deck to look at. You get to play set 5 cards, you get to use some set 4 stuff that was interesting, bring it back with a set 1 Megazord, the set 4 Retro Rangers. It just kind of mashes the whole game together. All 5 sets are doing something here. There's cards from literally every expansion of this game within this deck. It's just a really fun way to cap off a journey through the Power Rangers ACG that we've been doing this last month. I think set 5 could have been really cool. It introduced so many things to the game. It gave us so much more of this enhanced step effect, which means the meta, the play space would have changed so dramatically because there'd be so much more kind of like sneak attack play within this meta that didn't get to exist. Things that used to have been good may just not be at all now because cards will just appear out of nowhere, and I don't know, it's a shame that we missed it. I think there's the Ranger Key mechanic, giving cards like a basic effect and then pay a key to do something else extra cool is awesome. There's a ton of cards in set 5 that actually do use that Ranger Key effect. Some of them to more interesting stuff than this guy does. This, as we saw, is a great effect, but there are some that are a little more engaging. This one just creates a cool opportunity. A fun thing, each of the 5 Super Mega Force Rangers has one of these cards. Technically, the card number 2 in the set, we know was going to be the red Super Mega Force Ranger, and we never got to see what's on it. It's not even one of those where like we saw the image once and the image is lost. It's just no one ever got to see it. That card, I don't know if it got straight canceled or like what happened with it, but it never actually happened. To this day, no one knows what it does. However, all of the Rangers have a 1-cost version that does the exact same thing, and then they all have a 2-cost version that does the exact same thing across each of their cards. So it's easy to imagine that the 2-cost red Super Mega Force Ranger would have done the same effect, but for all red Rangers, which would have been insane because Forever Red was already a deck that was good, and now giving every red Ranger +1 damage and the ability to be played on top of him would have been crazy. We don't know if that was what he was going to do. We never got to see his card, but we know there's a green one, we know there's a blue one, we know there's a pink one, and we know there's a yellow one. So if you ever wanted to play Forever Blue or Forever Pink or Forever Yellow, this set would have allowed it. set 5 is awesome. Check out the PDF, even if it's just to like look at what the cards even did. Some work was put into kind of revitalizing them. The released images that we saw had the Megazord text in white, and it was just really, really hard to read. I went back and put all of that text back in black, so you can actually see what's on all of the cards. There was a card that had no image on it, like the art that we were supposed to get was never shown. We saw the effect in like the text box, but the image was blacked out. I went in and added an image to it so that the appropriate Megazord is on the card. I don't know, set 5 is just sweet. This is a cool game. I've had a blast kind of showcasing it for the last month. I have so much more of it to show off still. I'm not going to keep doing every week with these. There's been 4 of them. That's enough to wet your palates for now. I'll sprinkle them in throughout the year. I do plan to do, to try to stay closer to this one every Friday video thing for this year. Try to just do a little more with this channel. Previously, I was just kind of doing whenever something would inspire me to release it, or I felt like something needed to be archived, I'd make a video for it. I kind of want to do more actual just content focused around a schedule this year. So we'll see how that keeps up. We'll see if I stick to that. I apologize for this being a half-hour video. It was the final culmination of a month-long journey of this card game, and I really wanted to show off what it had to offer. For now, that's it though. Thank you for being along for the journey. Thank you for watching this far into the video if you did. Thanks for watching any of these. Try printing this out. Try seeing what the cards have to offer you. I'm curious to see what you think of these set 5 cards, what you think might have happened, what you think might have changed within the game, and if there's anything more you just want to see out of me from Power Rangers ACG. Peace.